Hello, good afternoon. Welcome everyone to our uHoo webinar, Knowledge to Action. I'm in a slightly unusual location today, not in my office, but I'm at the KLIA 2 airport. I've just taken over an Air Asia check-in desk. I hope they're not going to chase me away, but actually I checked before whether this gate has any flights coming up, so shouldn't be any problem. And Knowledge to Action is our theme today. And before we do a quick poll, I just share with you a story from today. I went to my friend's office in Plaza Damas, and I was straight away a little bit suspicious when I came in. There was a strong stench of VOC, volatile organic compounds. And I asked my friend, hey, buddy, have you ever measured this? Have you ever looked into this? He said, oh, no, I'm feeling sometimes a little bit unwell. I'm opening the window, but we really need to take some action. So knowledge is the first thing. They kind of felt a little bit weird in that office, but they didn't seem to realize that maybe there are some VOCs, either through the air exchange or from any construction works or from their carpets that they've been using. So knowledge is the first step, and then we need to take action. I'm really looking forward to today because we have two amazing speakers, both chemical engineers, ladies that are experts in their field and that will share with us some comprehensive overview over their experience, and hopefully it will lead us to knowledge and action that we can take. But let's start off with our poll. Let's see what question we have here from uHoo. And sometimes you can hear some announcements in the background here. I will mute myself when our speakers give their presentation, and then later on we will have some hopefully very interesting discussion. So I'd like to ask the uHoo team to pull up the first question for the first poll. What do you think is the most important concern that IAQ management will be able to address? It's a multiple choice. You can press as many of these items, tick as many of these boxes as you want. Poor health, increased carbon footprint, poor sustainability performance, weakened productivity, increased risk of virus spread and infection, or building and equipment deterioration. What are your answers? Let's see what kind of comments come in. Always interesting to see with these polls what is the general opinion and which has the highest score. Okay, I'll give it another 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's end the poll and see what what results we got. Sharing them here. Okay, the highest is poor health plus increased risk of virus spread and infection. Those two are both at the top with the highest percentage, 57. Then we've got the next one is weakened productivity and work output. So I think you guys are very much tuned into the aspect of if we don't pay attention on good indoor air quality, we have a negative impact on our employees, the productivity and the health. Good points, excellent. Let's kick things off with the first presentation. The first presentation will be from Atali Reyes. She's a very experienced chemical engineer with a lot of work done with different companies, different sectors on issues like environmental management systems. ISO 14001 used to be one of my favorite subjects in the past, 14001 as well. And she's going to focus on air quality and how it links in with sustainability. So Atali, the floor is yours.
Okay. So good afternoon to everyone, or if there's a different time zone, then good morning or good evening. So I'm sharing my screen. Oops, sorry. Wrong screen. Hold on, sorry.
Walang problema, as we say in the Philippines. We will just look for the right one and then presentation mode. Can you put it in presentation mode for us? Excellent, wonderful.
Yeah, can you see now the
Great.
presentation?
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
So again, hi to everyone. So I'm Athalie. So right now I'll be presenting what's the impact of better indoor air quality and sustainability. So usually when we think about sustainability, we don't automatically think about indoor air. First, we think of the environment, and then we think of outdoor air, right? So I'm here today to tell you that uh, all of these are related. I'm sorry about my voice. I'm a bit under the weather right now, so please bear with me. Okay. So just to align on what sustainability is. So basically, sustainability is just making progress or um, doing things without causing damage to the environment, and therefore will be able to continue for a long time. So that's the basic definition. So here it says that we don't use resources that cannot be replaced and that do not damage the environment. So when we talk about resources, it's not just natural resources, it's a lot of resources as well. So these resources can be grouped into the four pillars of sustainability. So that's human capital, social capital, natural capital, and economic capital or financial capital. Okay. So when we talk about human sustainability, so this is where our health comes into play. So education, health, and access to services. So we want to maintain and improve this human capital. So how do we do this? Usually we do this by improving knowledge and skills, like what we're doing right now. So we also need to balance continual growth with improvements to health and achieving economic well-being for everyone. So this also encompasses the development of skills and human capacity to support the functions of continuous growth. Okay. So now we talk about social capital. So this looks at the bigger picture in terms of community, cultures, and the globalization. So we need to invest and create services that constitute the framework of society. Okay. So we need to understand that what we do can have impact on others, the world, and future generations as well. So we do this, we preserve social capital by enforcing laws, creating laws. We also develop information, and we try to create shared ideas of equality and rights. So this also aligns with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So we need to address social economic improvements that also protect the environment and supports equality. Okay? So all of these pillars are mutually dependent. So one can be sustainable without the other three pillars. In terms of economic sustainability, it's not just the quantity of growth that's important, but also the quality of growth. So we want to improve the standard of living. Okay. So belonging to economic capital as well is the efficient use of assets so that we maintain profitability over time because businesses can't really thrive if they don't profit. Okay. So lastly, environmental sustainability or the preservation of the natural capital. So this is mostly what we hear when we talk about sustainability, right? That the needs of the population are met without compromising the needs of the future generations. So these four pillars of sustainability are also consistent with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Okay? So if you're familiar with the SDGs, so all of them, one way or another, affects the four pillars of sustainability. So for example, for human capital, there's quality education, there's sorry, there's good health and well-being. Then for social, we have poverty, hunger, equality, right? And then for economic, we have economic growth, industry innovation and infrastructure. And then we also have reduced inequalities. And then for environment, we have climate action, life below water. So most of these goals are interrelated. And again, it's important to always consider the four pillars of sustainability when trying to go for sustainability. Okay. So the next one, I'm sure you also know about ESG. So some companies already do ESG reporting. Sometimes it's a requirement. Sometimes it's a step beyond compliance. Okay. So mostly for this presentation, I'll be focusing on the social. As a result from the polls, you see that indoor air is mostly related to like health and safety or working conditions. So that's what we're focusing on today. So the social component of ESG. Okay. So just a brief background. So environment would talk mostly about energy, climate, water, waste, recycling. And then social, we have, again, the health and safety, working conditions, employee benefits, human rights. And then for governance, we have the ethical standards and stakeholder engagement. So jumping into the impact of indoor air quality on the four pillars, the first off, we have human sustainability. Okay. So for you, we all know that poor indoor air quality would cause several sicknesses like irritation of ear, nose, and throat. Then we also have headache, dizziness, and fatigue. So later on, these lead to sick leaves, etc. So we also term these as sick building syndromes or building related illnesses. Then possibly poor indoor air quality can also lead to chronic diseases like what Matthias mentioned. VOCs could probably cause cancer along the way. So there can also be respiratory illnesses, cardiovascular illnesses, and there could also be risks to the unborn child. So what we need to look at when we're designing a building or getting materials for a building is we need to find sustainable practices. So we need to search for eco-friendly cleaning and maintenance products, products that are low in VOCs and less toxic for both the environment and for the occupants of the building. In terms of economic sustainability, poor indoor air quality could lead to low worker productivity. So later on, I'll show you a few case studies that focus on these. Then also, it could have more cost for the businesses because of low energy efficiencies or high cost of energy. And it could also increase the number of needed renovations and repairs. So what solutions do we need? First of all, if there's still a chance to have green design and concepts for the building, that's the best. Then we also need to have baseline monitorings for indoor air quality so that we know what level we're on. Then thirdly, we need to optimize the indoor air quality conditions. Then we also need efficient use of assets and, of course, preventive maintenance. In terms of social sustainability, so there's a lot at stake, right? So there's environmental justice, there's the reputation of the company, also there's the right of workers and employees, and of course we have the liabilities to laws. So in the Philippines, there's the OSH law, and then protection of vulnerable groups as well. So we need procedures, policies, and laws in place to ensure that these are well looked after. Okay. We also need awareness and education. And of course, we need an effective feedback or grievance mechanism. So not only for our employees, but also for the communities around us or the occupants of the building and other stakeholders as well. Sorry. Lastly, so for indoor air quality and its effect on environmental sustainability, so we use some refrigerants, pesticides, or other materials or chemicals that could cause further greenhouse gas emissions or emissions of ozone depleting substances. So we need to be careful about this. So we also need to consider cleaner or renewable source of energy and also monitor our energy and operational efficiency. So, as I mentioned earlier, let me just share a case study. So, this case study, it was a study in Macedonia, I think. So, they found that they conducted three experimental studies, and they found that performance is actually increased or improved by 5% when air quality is improved from a mediocre level to a high level. So, they also stated that five principles are suggested behind the philosophy of excellence. So again, better IAQ to increase productivity and decrease sick building syndrome. Indoor air pollution sources should be avoided. So these are from your VOCs, your pesticides, and outdoor sources that could go indoor. So proper ventilation. So there should also be air that's served cool and dry for the occupants, and then personalized air and individual control of thermal environment should be provided. Way back in 1994, OSHA actually calculated a 3% loss of productivity from IAQ. So this can be different now because it's a fairly old study. So these were caused by sick building syndrome, building related illnesses, and multiple chemical sensitivity. So just to summarize, deteriorated indoor environments can cause symptoms, sicknesses, and reduced comfort. It can also lead to loss of concentration, which may result in inconsistent work, longer breaks, and more sick leaves. Okay. So in the Philippines, Matthias shared with me an example. So for Minarco Tower in BGC, so they're the only well-registered building in the Philippines. So well is like a certification that focuses on people's health and wellness. Then also at the same time, they're LEED certified as well. So LEED is a certification that focuses on environmental impact and sustainability. So from this case study, we see that the two, health and wellness, as well as environmental sustainability, they're not mutually opposite, right? So they work together. So usually what's good for the environment is also good for people in general. So they found that indoor air quality affects productivity, right? So having oxygen come in and carbon dioxide going out has a huge impact on alertness, as well as the amount of light that we get, because our we have body clocks and we usually our body responds to this natural light or light, so we produce more cortisol, which helps us be more productive or alert. Okay, so uh, all over the world, companies and organizations staying in well-certified buildings have learned that caring for the well-being of their employees has a good return on their business, because they see the reduction of sick leaves and turnover. Okay, so lastly, I just want to summarize, right? So Matthias mentioned that I have a strong background in ISO. So I wanted to apply this to IAQ and sustainability. So we do the cycle of plan, do, check, act. So firstly, plan, we get the baseline. What's our current indoor air quality? What are the risks and impacts? So who are our target occupants? Who are our stakeholders? And how do these indoor air affect them? And then what are our targets and objectives? So what do we want to happen? Then we do. So what are the programs that we can take? What are the procedures that we can make? How can we improve on the building design? And what engineering solutions can we put in place? Then lastly is check. So we have to monitor, evaluate, and assess. So this is where the grievance mechanism can come in. Also, indoor air monitoring and feedback from our stakeholders. And then lastly, we act. So we act on the sorry, assessments. We're continuing actions. Sorry. And then we recalibrate our targets and objectives, and we put in corrective actions. Okay. So basically, that's it for sustainability. So I hope to hear your questions later as well.
Yeah, hi, Atali. Great. Thanks for a very interesting presentation. I hope your cough is not based on bad indoor air quality at home.
It is actually, because I traveled from Singapore recently,
Mm.
and I noticed that the weather there is very dry and all their buildings have air conditioned rooms, and it triggered my allergies. So actually, my
Mm.
sickness is relevant to my topic.
Yeah. Interesting. Hopefully you will recover very soon. And what was quite powerful was this very old study there about 3% productivity loss if we have bad air quality. If we relate that back to your financial sustainability, that will have a big impact on figures for companies if you calculate that based on the employee salaries and aspects like that. I mean, it actually costs a lot to not have good air quality, but we struggle to put it into a financial frame to justify the investment in improving it better. So if you have any questions for Atali, please put them in the question section, and we will have later on plenty of time after our next presentation from Miriam Mateos. She is originally from Spain, now is a research scientist at the University of Stuttgart. She has as well a bachelor in chemical engineering and a master in air quality. So I know she's got a lot of detailed data on the use of air quality devices. And I'm really looking forward to you sharing with us, Miriam, all your interesting research results. Over to you.
Thank you, Matthias. It's a pleasure for me to be here. I'm gonna share my screen and hope it's working. Can you see the presentation?
Yes, all good.
Perfect. So, hello everyone. My name is Miriam Chacon Mateos, and I am a research scientist at the Department of Flue Gas Cleaning and Air Quality Control at the University of Stuttgart in Germany. And today I would like to talk about indoor air quality and the ways to improve it, also using air quality sensors. So to begin with, I would like to tell you what are the most important air pollution or air pollutants inside, so in indoor. And we can start with particle matter in all the three different categories, depending on the diameter, or if the particles are big, we divide it into three categories: PM10, PM 2.5, and ultrafine particle matter. But we also need to take care of the gases and CO2, for example, carbon dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, carbon monoxide, CO, volatile organic compounds, VOCs. This one is also, this molecule is the formaldehyde, which is also a very important one in indoor air quality. And this is a benzene, which is a polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbon. Radon, and also the biogenic aerosols like viruses, and we know a lot now about viruses in indoor, so I think I don't need to tell more. And what are the sources? There are a lot of different sources. Some sources come from outside, like outdoor air pollution. Depending on where you live, you will already have a background concentrations in your home, or in your school, in your office. Cooking, frying, baking, toasting, all the activities that we do in the kitchen could have an impact in the air quality we breathe. Smoking, and the building materials, as Atheli also mentioned in her presentation. Products for personal care, for cleaning, sprays, deodorants. They can generate also aerosols, volatile organic compounds, fireplaces and candles, and also printers and computers. There's a new recent study from this year that show that the levels of polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons were in rooms where there are a lot of computers, like offices, from 2 to 25 times higher than outdoor, which is quite impact. And also excess humidity, which has a main impact in the fungi and the biogenic aerosols. And now I would like to go a bit deeper in the effect of air pollution in human health, and for that I would like to use this nice picture from Thurston et al., in which we can see that air quality does not only affect the lungs or the respiratory system, but it can actually affect the whole body. We see here the ones in bold, highlighted in bold, are the ones that there is a clear evidence that there is a cause between a correlation between high air pollution and the morbidity or the mortality related with that disease. For example, lung cancer, but also diabetes, high blood pressure, strokes. I'm gonna use the laser point. Yeah, cardiovascular disease mortalities, and also in the pregnancy, premature birth, or decreased birth weight. And the ones that are not involved, there are already evidence, but these are new studies, so there may be less studies that has been dealing with these diseases. But in the future, there will be many more. And these are, for example, airway inflammation, insulin resistance, systematic inflammation, mental health also. It has been already correlated with air pollution, skin aging, and decrease in fetal growth or decreased sperm quality. And now I would like to show you a case study that I did in cooperation with a university hospital, the Charité in Berlin. And in our project, we measured the nitrogen dioxide and the particle matter in the houses of patients, and they had already asthma or chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases, COPD, and we measured for 30 days. And in order to do this, we use air quality sensors. We built our own boxes, and we located one in indoor and one in outdoor, for example, in the balcony or in the garden. And we also collocate passive samples for NO2. The patients should do an environmental questionnaire in order to know more about the building, the house, the environment. And they filled a protocol of activities daily, and also did a spirometry test to control the symptoms. The patients were mostly living in an urban background in Stuttgart, and we also had a monitoring station there in order to calibrate the sensors and do the quality control. Let's have a look at the case study. So let's start with the patient A. The patient A had the kitchen and the living room in an open concept, which is nowadays a very, it's a trend to build, at least in Germany. Everyone wants to have the kitchen together with the living room, like it's a free space, it's nice. But as you can see in this graph, where it is shown the PM2.5, the small particles, we see that in everything that you do in the kitchen, then it already have an influence in the air quality you are breathing also in the living room. As you can see here, most of the peaks are related with cooking or cleaning, or if there was a visit, for example, it means that there was probably a lot of more movement in the living room, and the particles were in the air. And yeah, so with this example, I would like also to highlight the importance of using the cooker hood when we are cooking, and even when we are opening the oven, because sometimes we usually tend to forget that when we open the oven, it will also come a lot of gases and particle matter from there. So please use the cooker hood and ventilate a lot after having cleaned or cook. Let's have a look at the patient B. And this patient was living pretty much in the center of Stuttgart. And here in this graph, also again for PM2.5, we can see the effect of the outdoor air quality in the indoor air quality very clearly. Because in the days that there was temperature inversion, which is when the air quality usually, the pollutants stay in the lower troposphere longer time, and they cannot dissolve, so they stay close to the soil. And you can see the concentrations outside were very high, and indoor were also high those days compared to other days. And in the NO2 graph below, it's even more clear that the outdoor air quality influenced the indoor air quality. Studying a bit further the case of this patient, we could conclude also that this was not coming only when he was opening the window, but also due to infiltration through all windows. The windows were 40 years old, and they were, you could actually feel the air coming even when the windows was closed. So we recommend him to change the windows in order to avoid also that the events outside or the air pollution outside affect so much the indoor air quality. And the final patient I would like to show you is very, very interesting, because as you can see in this graph, the concentration of particle matter were really, really, really high. This is not normal. For indoor, I would say from the other patient, there was the highest concentrations. And if we compare the PM10 and the PM2.5, we can actually almost don't see, because the PM10 is same as PM2.5, it means that the particles were really, really small. And if we compare with the outdoor in green, we can see that the concentrations inside are really high, really high. So I try to find out the source of the particles and checking the protocol of activities that the patient wrote every day. I could see that she used a lot of scented candles, and she did not ventilate after using them, and she was having a lot and also blowing them out in order to not to have more. And yeah, so she told me, I love candles. It's she liked to have this night odor that the candles generate. But then I say, okay, then let me have a candle and I will analyze it in the laboratory, because she told me that she actually knew about that they can have an impact in the air quality, and she bought a very expensive ones that's supposed to be very high quality candle. And in the results of the laboratory, we can see that when the candle is lit, actually, all the time that the candle was lit, there was not such a big amount of particles. The particles were coming mostly when the candle was being blown out. And if you don't ventilate, of course, these particles are really small. They're from PM1, PM2.5, and even ultrafine particles, and they will stay a lot of hours in the air. So our recommendations for her were okay, she was already using a good quality candles, but also for you to certify that, just try to search for a proof of certification of the candles. In my opinion, it's better not to use candles, but yeah, sometimes you need candles for Christmas, for a romantic date. It's part of our culture sometimes, so it's not always avoidable. But if you use candles, then do not blow out the candles and rather use a metal candle snuffer or a wick dipper to extinguish the candle. It will also create a smoke, but way less. And especially important is to ventilate generously after having extinguished the candle. And that's all. Let's just go quickly in for 3 take-home messages. Indoor air quality is a major determinant of personal exposure to pollutants in today's world, because we spend 90% of the time indoors, in our office, in the school, in the houses. It is very important to take care of the air quality indoors. And the recent advances in sensing technology enable real-time monitoring of indoor environments. This was before not possible, but now we have this chance to measure. And remember that data is only powerful if it leads to action. So you can take control of the air you breathe. And thank you so much for your attention. I'm looking forward for the discussion.
Wow, great, Miriam. That was a lot of interesting data. And I guess one of the things that we will not forget is, be careful when you organize your candlelit romantic dinner with your partner or your family. Think twice about it. And one thing I wanted to ask you, I'd never heard that word before. What is a snuffer?
Okay, so the snuffer is this little, it looks like a cup that you can use to reduce the oxygen of the candle, so it will automatically switch off. Let's say the combustion will end because of a decrease of the oxygen, and that will also generate less particles as if you blow out with your mouth, because it will create incomplete combustion, and there will be a lot of VOCs being generated and soot. You can even actually see sometimes particles like black particles in the roof. If you leave the candle or close to in the furniture, close to the candle, you will see black particles, and this is soot, and this is really unhealthy to breathe.
So guys, if you want to have the candlelit dinner, only do it if you have a snuffer in the house. Just partially kidding. What I used to do, or what I do is I make my fingers wet, and then when I blow it out, I basically grab the what is it called, the thingy there, because that way you can avoid the further kind of release of the particles, because you can see the particles kind of, and you can smell it immediately as well. So that's very interesting. One thing I was interested in your presentation as well was the realization that actually the outside NOx was influencing completely the inside. I actually did a indoor air quality monitoring like 20 years ago, and the guy told me, oh man, how come you're doing this? Because I only have industrial customers who are required by law to do it. But I was suspicious about the air quality. But what we found out was that the outside air was much higher polluted than the inside air. So, you know, your windows and whether you can actually seal your windows is a very interesting aspect to that. So we have questions coming in. Let's go to the first question here. I think this one is for Atali. What relationship have you observed between energy consumption and indoor air quality? Are they opposing forces, Atali?
Yeah, thanks for that. So, yeah, I don't think they're mutually exclusive, right? So, for example, for air conditioning, so not to stress out air conditioning units, there's a 6 degree Celsius rule. So you don't turn your aircon temperature lower than 6 degrees than the outside temperature. So it becomes more efficient. At the same time, the comfort level of people also inside the building is dependent on the temperature, right? So if it's too hot, or if the temperature gradient from the outside is too much, then it will affect like people going in and out of the building. So it will make them react, have allergies and stuff. So like I was saying with my sickness, it was because of me going into air conditioned rooms and outside with the weather not being so good, or being hot or too cold probably. So I don't think it's exclusive or opposite, right? So yeah, if you want energy efficiency, don't turn the temperature gradient too much from the outside air, and as well as considering the comfort level of people. And also, some of the case studies mentioned that we need to have personalized air for individuals, right? So if people adjust the temperature according to their own comfort, we're assuming that it's not too far from the outside temperature. So it would also be more energy efficient as well.
Yeah, I think a nice idea could as well be to monitor the temperature and at the same time the air quality, and see what is the relationship, is there any impact. I mean, one of the things that's happened during the pandemic is that people have started to introduce more powerful filters, you know, instead of MERV 10 or 12 or 14, they've ramped it up to HEPA filters or MERV 16, 18, and then you need to push more air through. You need to maybe get a more powerful industrial motor to actually make it happen. So in some cases, I think it can lead to a more power consumption. But on the other hand, if you manage your air quality well, you should as well then control and manage your energy consumption in relation to the conditions in buildings. And I've seen many buildings where it's very cold and nobody cares. You know, when you go into an office and see people having their jackets on, then you know it's too cold, and that's a negative impact on their health, and it's wasting electricity. So yeah, good and important subject. Miriam, we have a couple of questions coming in for you. One is, what sensors did you use to monitor the indoor and the outdoor? And our good friend Albert was asking as well whether your data is published already. I think he wants to drill down more on your very interesting research.
Okay, thank you for the questions. The PM sensors were optical particle counters, and the data is still not published yet, but I will definitely publish. Hopefully next year it's gonna be already out. Matthias, you are mute.
Yeah. Then we have here Albert as well. Which thresholds and standards of IAQ measurement should be used in relation to health?
Okay, so there is no indoor standard. There are workplaces standards for indoor air, but specific for only for indoor, no, only for workplaces. But I would go and check the worker organization recommendations, because those are the ones that are that take into account all the studies and the evidence, and less political decisions and more evidences. The worker organization recommendations, and they are for outdoor air, but for me, actually, 5 micrograms of PM 2.5 is the same if it's outside or indoor. It's at the end the air that you are breathing. So the worker organization standards recommendations are the ones that we should follow.
Yeah, we have as well a very interesting question from Nepal with regards to the use of needle burners that as well actually they're used in the context of syringes. But our good friend here, Dipendra, is concerned about the pollution. How can the health workers be convinced that this is not a good practice to use?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's difficult, because sometimes it's more about the cultural thing as what we can do. The scientists try to give the information and publish openly the health effects that these the combustions in indoor could cause. But of course, then it's not always easy to change our behavior. Yeah, it's a matter of just trying a lot. I would say, like, really like pressing them to with a lot of scientific information in order to make really to make the change.
Actually, I would suggest to Dipendra, it's good to use scientific information, but if you show people live and bring an IAQ monitoring device with you, show it to people there and then, and give them the data. This is what happens when you actually use this practice, the needle burners. Then people will believe you if you show it to them in front of their eyes. I mean, I was at an exhibition last week, and some guys were trying to show the ability of an air quality monitoring device, and they just used, this was funny, anti-COVID spray with eucalyptus inside, and they were basically using that, spraying that, and then the VOC counter went through the roof. So sometimes even in these products that we are buying out there that are supposedly healthy, there is pollution in there. So, when you see that, wow, the VOC goes through the roof, then, or the PM 2.5 with the needle burners goes through the roof, then you will be able to convince people more. I mean, that's what I've been doing when I've been visiting factories or offices. I always bring along my uHoo device, and I put it there in action and show the data to people. That's when people wake up, and that's when people start taking action, because learning and awareness and knowledge is the first step for them to actually take action. So we have the next question here from Hamidi. Do you foresee future integration of IAQ centers into ACMV equipments by the manufacturers, such as IAQ sensors become part of the ACMV system?
Yeah, definitely. And this is not the future. This is the actual world, the reality. There's already a lot of companies that are using air sensors to try the heat pumps, for example. So yes, it's actually already what is happening. It's not longer the future, but probably in the future it will be more, and it will be probably a standard.
Yeah, controlling devices in your building based on actual needs. Like, if your CO2 level is very low, why do you need to put fresh air into the building? So, connecting these two things with one another makes logical sense. And that then helps as well to save electricity, because if your pump is not running, because you don't need fresh air coming in, then your power consumption goes lower. And most people don't realize that these electric motors that drive, our chillers, our air handling units, they consume in total about 30% of high-rise building consumption. I mean, motors down in the basement that nobody sees are a huge contributor to the power consumption. So a question for Atali from my side. I mean, you and me, we both like environmental management systems or ISO management systems. Sometimes these management systems, if they are designed for an external audit, they might be a bit too bureaucratic, but in principle, plan, do, check, act, continual improvement. How can we effectively integrate IAQ management, sustainability, and ESG into such an ISO 14001 framework? What is your suggestion?
Yeah, I think really for me, what's important is that we recognize that it's also a factor in both environmental management systems and occupational health and safety, right? Then from there, what we need to do is get the baseline always. So there's constant monitoring, continuous monitoring, and then we also need to take actions for that. So I think it's very important, the management of buildings, leadership recognize the fact that there's an impact both on health and sustainability as well as economic. So they consider these discussions as well. Yeah.
So thanks, Atali. Miriam, your patients that you were looking after, did they take the action? Did they implement your recommendations? And are you still in touch with them to monitor the ongoing potential improvement?
I did the recommendations, but I did no follow up. I had to be honest. Yeah, because of the clinical data, we were not supposed to contact them more due to confidentiality. No, I could not follow them up. Yeah, don't have the contact anymore.
Because the one patient with the NOx like very high in the building and completely mirroring the outside pattern of the data. I mean, it's very obvious. You recommended her to change the windows, right? The old windows. But then the question is, does the house belong to her, or is she just renting it? And how much is going to be the investment? I mean, it's not cheap to change windows in Germany. I know that because I did it for my mother's house a couple of years ago, and it was a big bill. So yeah, it's often this idea of cost of taking action versus the ROI of taking action. And maybe a question to both of you: how can we better make the business case of good indoor air quality, particularly to companies where we've detected some issues? How can we convince them, and what do we need to do to get the ROI business case for companies to take the action?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I think a lot of probably management or leadership would have data, but usually they'd be looking at high level, right? So we can actually quantify the sick leaves, the health issues, whatever cost these have, versus what improvements they have to make those sick building syndromes go away. And maybe it's a better comparison for them to look at and start to change, rather than, okay, let's say here are the data, because usually management would be looking for something high level or something with more cost impact. So data is good because it drives analysis, but yeah, we also need it to put it into perspective in terms of cost, I think, for them. So what's lost and what can be gained.
Actually, the second case study that you mentioned from the Philippines, I remember them sharing at a previous uHoo event that in Makati, in their old building, they had a nurse that was very busy. In their new, well-certified Zen building with all sorts of health features, the nurse didn't have hardly any work to do anymore. I mean, that already is, even though it's not quantified like, oh, how many patients do I have per day? But that anecdotal story is very powerful in terms of, hey, you're going to gain a lot in productivity there if you implement these kind of measures. So, yeah, we have another question here from Nepal. Miriam, the question is, if you spend on household indoor air purifiers, are they worth using? Do they purify the pollutants except for PM? I mean, how good are those household indoor air purifiers?
Yeah, well, actually, we have been also trying a lot of air purifiers in the last couple of months because of Corona. Everyone is now interested in having one. They actually work really good for particle matter. But of course, the particle matter is not everything. We also have VOCs, we have CO, we have CO2, and air purifiers, depending on which one you buy, may not have 100% efficiency in everything. Usually are really good for particle matter, but for gases, they cannot filtrate the gases. Instead of, they have some other principle also, and they are of course more expensive. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Miriam. We have as well Albert mentioning that he has got data from IAQ measurement in 100 households that he's happy to share. Those were done with the uHoo sensors. So I think there was as well some outdoor measurement going on. Albert, is that correct? And you know, often you get the outdoor data from the government, or you can get at least some data points. So as long as you measure your indoor, you can relate it to outdoor and track the synergies there. So that's a very interesting aspect. And we have here as well, Lance, a comment. He says, in our experience, action follow complaints. By educating tenants about health risks and educating business owners about the consequential financial impact, change can be driven by creating a groundswell of expectation. Yeah, I think this is very much, you know, in tenants and individual employees that start getting aware and making noise about it. Or if you flip it around, you know, particularly now post-COVID, where a lot of office buildings are empty, why not use this as a sales strategy? We have top of quality air quality in our offices. We are monitoring the main parameters. We are ensuring that our carbon dioxide is below 1,000 to ensure there is fresh air in the rooms to lower the COVID risk, and so on and so on. So it can actually become a sales tool for the building owner to communicate to his tenants. Or particularly from an ESG perspective, listed companies should actually put this in their criteria for procurement. Before you rent, check out the indoor air quality in the place that you're going to rent to make sure that you don't have that potential negative impact. Great, excellent. We had a wonderful discussion. We have one more poll coming, so I suggest we get that poll launched. We have Albert as well commenting that the outdoor air quality was measured in selected areas, and there was research done on the relationship. So that's a great piece of research as well that Albert is happy to share with people. So please message Albert, the medical director and expert at uHoo in the Netherlands. So let's launch the final poll and see what additional interesting questions we've got. The question is, which of the following do you feel would limit your organization's ability to completely address issues concerning indoor air quality? Is it a lack of knowledge and expertise? Is it a lack of interest and engagement between people or parties? Is it the budget, or is it none of the above? So let's see what is the leading limitation that we have. We want to take action. We know action is good. We learned today about the benefits of taking the action. And let's see what is the main limitation that prevents us from moving this up the agenda. I mean, one tip that I would give as well, particularly listed companies, if you push this from the angle of ESG, the social part that Atali mentioned in her introduction today, you get much more corporate interest on this, because ESG topics are getting quite hot because of investors evaluating, people having to publish ESG reports, sustainability reports. So all these things, it helps it to lift it to a higher level of significance in the organization. So let's see what we have. I will share the results here. We have number one, as expected, the budget. Let's get more budget, guys. Then number two, lack of interest or engagement. But we had this interesting comment that said, you know, if you make people aware, if you get tenants involved, then you usually get more interest, because suddenly people make this an issue. People make this a topic, lack of knowledge or expertise. That's great. Thank you so much. And I think, do we have one more poll for the actual follow-up in terms of who wants to connect with whom? Yes, we will have the speaker follow-up here. You want to get in touch with Atali? You want to get in touch with Miriam? Don't get in touch with me, just joking. Or get in touch with uHoo. Let's see whom you want to get in touch with. Especially, you know, what the one thing that will stick in my mind after today is, you know, next time I have a romantic dinner with my darling, I need the snuffer. Without the snuffer, I'm gonna be snuffed. I'm gonna be in trouble.
Absolutely.
Let's all. Have you got a website where we can order the snuffer? Maybe uHoo can introduce it as part of their portfolio of products online. Get your snuffer here. All right, great, excellent. We have Miriam, no surprise, with your solid data. You have most people who want to follow up with you. That's great. And it was a lovely afternoon here from the airport. Thanks to AirAsia for voluntarily giving me their desk, or I have to say I took it. And I've had good internet connection here, so great. I think we will have a final short video, but thanks everyone. Thanks Miriam and Atali for the amazing presentations, and the uHoo team that's working in the background there, Cheska, Iveti, and all the others. Thanks so much. I really enjoyed it. And I will sniff out the snuffer. So see you guys next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.